Hello.
Wow. Okay. So that was absolutely
Oh,
fascinating. I'm just watching the end here to see what happens if there's much.
Dilo, what channel are you watching it on?
It's the same link that we posted the C-SPAN 2
Oh,
link.
we're watching on CNN. Yeah. We're watching on the TV.
Okay. Okay.
We're gonna have TV.
All right. So for those of you that are still oh oh okay. So for those of you that are still watching at home, if you're still with us, one of the goals here is to have a bit of a post-debate analysis. And so, I'll provide mine first. And if other members of the debate team would like to provide maybe some of their takeaways from that particular debate. So first and foremost, I would say that that is probably the most interesting debate that I have ever seen in my life in terms of a political debate, other than maybe some of those third party candidate debates that happen uh, with. Oh, excuse me. I got some audio issues going on here. Something's. Okay, well, I don't know. I got some weird audio stuff coming in. I I fear that if there is no semblance of decorum, there's no sense of at least respect for arguments and oppositional perspective. How the institution and faith and belief in democracy can persist. And while doing some research on the history of debate in the country, Kathleen Jameson's book talked about what it was like in Congress leading up to the Civil War. And I'm not saying that we're anywhere near in the context of a civil war, but when people choose and decide that they will just take their ball and go home, and they refuse to at least engage in the platform of debate, not assuming that you can persuade your opposition, but at least get your arguments clearly on record and be okay with opponents disagreeing with you. That when balls are taken home and all decorum is removed, it's not good. And so, the hope is, and it is that examples of debates like this will be used as a clear thing that we should avoid moving forward. That this should not be replicated. It does beg some questions about whether or not both of these participants are going to show up for future debates. Not to say that that was an argument that was made in the debate or not, but it does beg the question on whether or not a continuation of this process is needed, which is disheartening for me in the end. Who won? I'm going to go back to what Nate Cohen said from the New York Times, that if people walk away from this event and they say that nobody won because it was a catastrophe, it was a train wreck, that really Biden is currently in the lead. And if anything, it probably backs the status quo assumptions about the two candidates. And unless there is some major shift in the polls or some significant polling error like what happened in 2016, Biden's currently ahead in many of those swing states. So, a few takeaways, I guess, from my perspective, is, Biden and the targeting of both centrist voters within the party as well as the left. It clearly seems to me that, he's attempting to court both, but spending a lot more time on the centrist approach in hopes that the more liberal and progressive wing of the party is going to back him based on a mitigation voting strategy because of the fear of an additional Trump administration. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I got. I'm honestly a little bit in shock after watching the debate. So, if there are any other members of the team that want to jump in, well, we can hop over to Hope and Cam.
Yeah. I mean, we largely agree with your take on the debate in terms of it being a wild time.
Yes. One of the messiest presidential debates I think I've ever watched. Not that I've had a lot, but like it's definitely a take.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback a little on your claim of like who Biden was trying to court, because I think that that's the real focus of this debate is who Biden is trying to appeal to. I think that in terms of standard political polling and parlance, it's pretty typical for Trump to just be appealing to Trump voters and Trump's base, who throughout polling have shown to be very resilient, both as a floor and a ceiling, i.e., Trump has not really gained more voters since 2016, but likewise, he hasn't really lost many voters since 2016 either. Trump's voters are quote unquote ride or die. Biden's voters, on the other hand, are a little bit more fluctuating. I think that it's interesting that Biden is attempting to court this sort of moderate voter, centrist voter, perhaps even peeling off some moderate Republicans from what are imagined Trump voters. For example, I think a good instance of this is the Lincoln Project, a project which has been popping up on social media and some advertising for the campaigns, consisting of formerly Republican or still Republican voters and advocates who are now saying that they're voting for Biden just out of a distaste for Trump. That sort of focus, I think, is the party and section that Biden has been appealing to, particularly through his ostensible disavowal of the Green New Deal, which I'm slightly biased on this, to be clear, given that I am in the School of Public and Environmental Affairs. But the Green New Deal and climate change tends to matter to a lot of younger voters, especially younger Democratic voters. And that is something that I think that Biden was fairly weak on this debate. I know that it wasn't supposed to be the topic of this debate, but it still was something that came up at the end of the debate, and Biden chose to avoid the Green New Deal and avoid those sort of more radical commitments.
Okay. Well, I don't know if Ioka, Bricker, or others. Oh, no
We're
volume.
having a hard time here. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, here's the ultimate takeaway, I think, is, it's up to the American public to kind of decide whether or not they want to hold people accountable, what norms and expectations that they choose to facilitate and develop. And, one of the fears that I have as a debate coach is that we have not spent a great deal of time at maintaining, developing, and building institutions that are based on disagreement and training people to be able to engage in agreement and disagreement constructively, or at least being able to recognize that the best means of facilitating government and anything else is through a method of both debate and other means of showing frustrations with the status quo. And so, given what we have seen around the country in terms of paramilitary groups, as well as some pretty unfortunate incidences in which arms have been used, I do fear about what the signals of debates like this mean for those followers and their belief that institutions may be able to resolve and carry us through and forward. So, I mean, not to be all doom and gloom, like I mentioned, it's up to the American people to choose what they believe is acceptable, to not assume that the candidates that are on the stage are the country, but rather what we believe that we should gain. And most of the data will recognize that, if you go out and you chat with your neighbors, regardless of disagreements on policy matters, politics, belief in how human nature operates, or anything else, that if you have that kind of face-to-face interaction and a willingness to give time, effort, and resources to one another, that you're able to mitigate and reduce some of the divisions that are out there. So tomorrow, the School of Public and Environmental Affairs, myself, along with Dr. Ben Warner of the University of Missouri, and Dr. Kelly Winfrey of the University, Iowa State University, will be participating in a live panel discussion with the Civic Leaders Center out in Briscoe to be able to talk about takeaways from this debate. While I'm a debate coach and I spend a lot of time engaging in a well-constructed form of debate in which students are not allowed to really talk over, yell at each other, and they must follow basic time limits as the floor of entering the activity. These two academics spend a lot of time evaluating the nitty gritty of how these debates affect audiences. And like I mentioned before, and as I posted, Dr. Warner's work largely suggests that people, generally speaking, when they watch these debates, come away with an increase in positivity towards both candidates, regardless of them being Democrats or Republicans. And I just don't see that happening after this debate. And so I think this particular debate it sets new norms, and if anything, shatters the mold in what people will feel towards politics. And maybe that's a bad thing for us in the end. I don't know. I hope we can figure it out. So with that, I'll end the live cast and the live blog. I just want to thank everybody for spending their night with us. We'll do this again going into the vice presidential debate and the other 3 debates if they happen. And I look forward to seeing you all back here. Thank you.